Hi, seventh graders. How are you? Welcome back. Hope you had a nice, restful weekend. Welcome back for another exciting week of social studies as we're going to continue our exploration of the history of Action Jackson. Andy Jackson. Oh, yeah. The man. And, for better or for worse, but he definitely was the man with a lot of power. Let's look today at the Nullification Crisis, one of the big issues that happens during his presidency. Um, you might recall tariffs keep coming up in the history of the United States in the 1800s. A tariff is a tax on foreign goods. In the American system pushed by Henry Clay, tariffs would be put in place to protect American factories and merchants to try to make American goods cheaper and to make foreign goods more expensive. But Southerners hate the tariffs because it hurts their cotton sales. Tariffs work both ways. And now the Europeans start putting taxes on their goods, which means less people in Europe are buying their stuff and they're making less money. And also makes their imports from Europe more expensive. So they lose out twice. So they argue, as they had previously, that they have the right to nullify or to cancel out any federal law the states oppose. So the majority of the people in New Jersey oppose a federal law. New Jersey can say, well, that law is not valid in the borders of New Jersey. We have the right to cancel it out, to nullify it. The leading voice for this nullification was this handsome devil, Vice President John C. Calhoun. Oh yeah. He looks pretty surprised in that picture. I'm surprised that that's what they the pose they chose. But hey, to each their own. So maybe he just read the Tariff of Abominations. That's why he looks so upset. He is the vice president of President Jackson. You might remember that Calhoun had already been becoming more and more of a voice in the federal government, whether it was being one of the war hawks leading up to the War of 1812, helping devise the American system. But it's funny, he liked the infrastructure, but he really didn't like the idea of tariffs, and also liked the idea that states should be allowed to nullify laws. He believes that states' rights to nullify is really important. And there's a real reason for this. Um, they want to be able to nullify any laws that might get passed that try to limit slavery. They're constantly worried in the South of the federal government interfering with the system of slavery. So, really, nullification isn't just about the state's right to stop a tariff. It's really about them trying to maintain they have the right to stop any abolitionist laws. And to this end, they say if we don't get the right to nullify, we have the right to leave the United States, become our own country, to secede from the Union. That's another big notion. That's going to be a big idea with the pro-slavery movement. That if the U.S. becomes no longer in the interest of those who want to continue to own slaves, that they have the right to leave, to form their own country, to secede from the United States. President Jackson, not really crazy with his vice president, and not really crazy with that whole idea of nullification. First, he signed the tariff into law, both of them in 1828 and 1832, and he feels that, sorry, you don't have the right to nullify. He feels that states, once they join the United States, once they join the Union, they're in a contract. So in a contract, you exchange things. You give and you get. So the state, like South Carolina, gave up the right to nullify law in exchange for the protection and the economy that it got from joining the Union with all the other states. And if they decide to try to leave the United States, Jackson maintained that he had a, quote, solemn obligation to preserve the Union at all costs, meaning that if you try to leave, I have a right to kill you. And that's exactly what Jackson's going to maintain. He gets the Congress to pass a law called the Force Act that allows Andrew Jackson the right to lead the U.S. military into a U.S. state and force them to pay the tariff if they try to nullify it. If they refuse to pay the tax, if they refuse to pay the tariff, or if they try to secede from the Union. Um, and the South is all up in arms. They're pretty upset about it. But the same day, Congress, in a compromise, passes a bill that lowers the tariff. So South Carolina gets a little bit of a lower tariff, but the federal government gets the authority to use its military to preserve the Union. Calhoun is so mad about this, he quits and resigns, which Andrew Jackson probably will be pretty happy about. On his deathbed, Andrew Jackson will say of the regrets that he had in his life, one of them was not shooting Henry Clay, and the other one was not hanging John C. Calhoun. Not necessarily the most nonviolent fella in our history. On his deathbed, his only regrets were that he didn't kill other people. Yay. So, let's take a look at this. Should the president have the authority to use the military to enforce federal laws if a state refuses to follow them? So if a state says, we're not following this law, can the president send the army in to force them to do it? What do you think? I look forward to reading your answers. I promise I won't nullify them. Have a wonderful day.